Howdy ho and welcome to Rauta's Reviews. First, before I start talking about this very band from Singapore, let's just say that there are two kinds of music. The typical kind is something that you've already heard quite a few times. Doesn't matter whether we're talking about pop, rock, metal. It's all laid out there and you know it. We might say black metal is marginal music, but let's face it, most of it's rather unoriginal. Anyway, since 90s. And then there are bands which are totally unique, the kind of a rare breed which feels totally original and even weird to some extent. That is what Tok Yathraa is all about, and now they are out with second album. They might be a little bit of exaggeration because in fact this is a one creature project, I would say, from Singapore. And what a unique blend in music this is. This one's called Chapter Toyol here, and it features actually 8 tracks, not 7 like it's mentioned here. I don't know why one of the tracks were left out from the listing, but that's how it is. And this roughly runs for some 35 minutes. Those of you who previously watched my Tok Yathraa review from the previous A5 Digipack, also out by Bestial Burst, already pretty much know what to expect. Some very, very unique music with kind of fits the box or pigeonhole of black and roll, but that is nearly not as accurate. I mean, it's as accurate to describe this as black and roll as to say, this is your typical baby vampire. You know, it is that original, that scarce music with very, very interesting looks, visuals, and music. To be honest, this visual side here, it's way more common and normal than the music within. Let's tune for Metal Archive site. Well, I'll tell you a little bit more. As you can see, this band is very, very new. Founded in 2020, and already there are out quite a few singles, a couple of EPs, a split release, plus 2 full-length albums. Now, Chapter Pokong, which is the previous one, the first one I reviewed of this project, came out in June 2020. So only in 7 months later, roughly, give or take, Chapter Toyol takes place, and this is, well, missing the track length it seems, but 35 minutes and the kind of a next chapter to this Tok Yathraa thing. Also, what is worth mentioning that there's only one member, Tok Yathraa, which seems to be doing everything: guitars, bass, keyboards, vocals. As you can see, it's not drums, because the drums are programmed. There are no real drums, and they kind of sound hilariously stupid. Let's be honest about it. As much as I like the unique feeling with this album, these drums are just next to horrible. They're kind of like a goofy thing, a thing to laugh at, but it doesn't matter. Also, the guitar sound is very, very weak and mushy and kind of like poor demo from like 80s or 90s, but that doesn't matter too much either. Okay, granted, the album would sound a lot better if there was like better guitar sounding, proper amplifier and better distortion or whatever, and also if the drums were real. And this is basically the only thing where I hope the band would actually improve, because everything else is something that, while I can't enjoy it to the full, I mean, songwriting is somewhat weird, peculiar, unique, strange, odd, and just kind of a mystical and magical. I must say it's quite enjoyable because it's so weird and goofy, and it's like going to this karaoke bar in some bizarre Asian city, and then you are already a little bit drunk, or maybe you're kind of intoxicated for other reasons, and you go to this surreal karaoke bar, and then there is this weird artist doing its music, and then you feel like this is Tok Yathraa. Now, this applies to this combination known as black and roll, because at its sweetest, Tok Yathraa is in fact playing kind of a western sounding hard rock with guitar melodies and actually melodic singing, clean vocals and all. And it's somewhat, in a bizarre way, somewhat enjoyable. And I just can't get it in my head. I feel like that song, I think it's this Amaya. I'm not totally sure because the track list doesn't really go with the, what is presented here. But I think it's this Amaya. I would like to hear it as, with the Bon Jovi production. Because what it really lacks is total good production. But the rest of the songs, they're like more kind of a raw, somewhat primitive, mystical black metal with very, very, atypical angle to the music. You really don't hear this with Western bands. Doesn't matter whether we're talking about Finnish, Norwegian, Swedish, German, French, who knows what, American bands, British bands. Doesn't matter. Everything in the Western countries sound like they're coming from Western countries. But you really have to go beyond the Western lifestyle and musical patterns and ideas to get something out of ordinary. And that's where Tok Yathraa comes into play. And while everything here is not top notch, it's granted, it's not that high quality music, it has this strange appeal because it's so different. It's very, very strange music all in all. At some points there are some really good riffs and the vocals are quite raw and I like them. It's kind of a raspy black metal vocals and maybe the most normal part on this album. But that what makes this album so interesting and somewhat enjoyable is that you have the elements which kind of don't have anything to do with each other. The strains and the common. And that what blends in, it makes this historically fun to listen to. Now, like I said, don't get the wrong idea. I'm not vouching and saying like this is the album of the month or anything like that. In fact, this album, which is by the way out on February 13th, or actually, let me see. I think I have the official release date, which says something like February 1st. So this is not accurate here. This music is not the album of the month or album of the year or anything like that, but there are interesting points because it's just so different. So I would say proceed with caution. Don't expect this to be the next masterpiece in black metal or even black and roll, which is kind of a goofy genre or sub-genre in the first place. But still, I hope that you will give this album a chance, because it's probably something you have never ever heard before. That is, unless you heard the previous album. I think this is a little bit better though. And while this is kind of a hard to digest and understand, there are ideas which brings me, smile on my face. And it doesn't matter if it's this really, really funny baby laughing on the background. There is one track where you can just hear this baby or toddler laughing constantly, and there is something weird, but it is very amusing. Also, at some song there is a female person, obviously, crying, and it is kind of a weird. So there is a different spectrum of emotions going through this album, and it sounds just weird. And that's why this album is kind of a must hear, even if you don't like it. At least give it a couple of tracks a go, and what can I say? I hope you enjoy it. Very weird, but also enjoyable to some degree. An interesting release, and I hope more bands such as this will surface later on. We've all heard Western black metal for so many decades now, and we all know what to expect, but we really don't expect this Tok Yathraa. Thank you for watching. See you later. Bye bye.